Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday live stream. And the market continues to bleed. And if we just take a look at it, which I'm sure everybody has done so far, it is not a pretty picture. I think yesterday we were hovering around 90K or so, 91, 92, somewhere around there. And for the last, 7 days, 1 month, 3 months, for the longest time, we've just been moving sideways. And if you believe that the top was October 6, then you can just see that after that 124, 125 level, we've just been slowly going down. Is that our destiny, or do we have some good news in the horizon? Well, luckily for us, there are some good things, but first we have to get through the bad stuff. So I will say that this drawdown is not one of the biggest ever, but if we take a look at the Bitcoin percentage drawdown from all-time highs going all the way back to July, but it's I should remember to set this. I want to see if that is the biggest. And it is. Going all the way back to March 2024, almost for 2 years, it is this last one on the 1st of December is a drawdown of roughly 31%. And the biggest drawdown we've had so far in roughly a couple of years or so is about 31.8%. So we are definitely in that downward trend. And the bulls are taking a back seat to the bears, and the bears really are in control of what's happening. And right now we are seeing across the board that gold, which is a risk-off asset, is doing pretty darn good. Here we are for a year or so, over like a month, still up, over 1 week, still up, 3 days up, last 24 hours up. Now it's not at its all-time high, very true, but you can see where gold is as a risk-off asset. And I know people will say, well, Bitcoin is a gold 2.0. Perhaps, and I believe it can be, but right now it's a little bit too volatile, and I believe it is still a risk-on asset, and that's why gold is carrying the torch. So what's going on in the background? Well, it's a lot of things I think you've already heard about. First of all, Microstrategy just cut their earnings target. That makes sense, as everything's pretty much backed up by Bitcoin across the board. And we're going to see that these DATs, these digital asset treasuries, these different companies across the board, they're all hurting. And we talked about this many a time on the channel. And it really comes down to which ones have the ultimate conviction and are going to stay the course, and which ones are going to sell off. And we're going to see that as far as like Bitcoin versus Bitcoin treasury companies, everything is pretty much in line. This is Bitcoin versus Bitcoin treasury companies. I got to tell you, in green is Bitcoin, and it's pretty much has been flat. You can see it's in between these two, orange and red. I really hate when they use these colors. They don't contrast well for these grids. I actually need to redo this with AI or something. But you can see here in green, this is the price of Bitcoin. It's been pretty much flat across the board. We've had some peaks and some spikes, but some of the treasuries, or the digital asset treasury companies, have actually benefited greatly. One of the big ones we met, Planet, that is a hotel business out of Japan. I think they sold most of their hotels. I think they only have one, and pretty much have gone all in on Bitcoin. Hope it works out. Strategy, another one who did pretty well, but has been pretty much flat and actually in reduction. And then the other next big one, what is this in purple? 21 Capital. So congratulations, but of course they are down across the board. And that's not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum as well, as these DATs are actually also suffering. BitMine is actually up just a little bit. That is Tom Lee's company, and they're putting on the balance sheet. So hopefully it all works out for them in the long run. I personally believe it will, but right now things are really looking pretty bleak. But there was a bright spot, and Michael Saylor actually came on to Fox Business. This was last week actually, and he said that Microstrategy, or now called Strategy, is indestructible. And he states that in a Fox Business interview on Tuesday, even if the Bitcoin price is flat for years to come or falls as much as 90%. He states as long as Bitcoin goes up 1.25% a year, the company can pay the dividend forever and create more shareholder value. Now look, just yesterday, me and Jerry were talking about how there was an admission. And the admission came from Fang Li, who's the CEO of Microstrategy. Hope I said his name right. And he pretty much said in the last what Bitcoin did, he's like, look, if things go down the pipe a little bit wrong, we hold it that we will sell Bitcoin. And he said it right there in the podcast. We talk about it, and I know people will say, they'll never sell. Never say never. And this is what the reality that we face. So when Michael Saylor comes out and says, hey, this is what we got and we can do this forever, that gave me a little bit of hope. And then this morning, Michael Saylor put this out. Another rate hike last night. STRC is now paying yields or dividends of 10.75%. That is great. So they've actually increased their yields. But I will tell you, as time has gone on, I've become more cynical. And a cynic is nothing more than an optimist who's gotten pummeled. And that's us. So when I see things about, hey, we're going to have more yield, we got more dividend, I'm like, where's this coming from? Where is this happening? And I'm not here to point fingers. I'm just saying, just stick with me and see if you can agree with this. I put out this infographic. And I said, to me, this is where I see the yield coming from. Now, of course, people will say, well, MicroStrategy has all these levers and tools to do this. And that's great. Hopefully they pull all the cats out of the bag. But I see it in 4 ways. And there's 4 ways that MicroStrategy can generate yield. Now, there may be some caveats to each of these. There may be an addition, but this is the big 4. And what it looks like to me, and again, I'm welcome to talk about this in the Q&A. You got 4, which is 1, sell Bitcoin. I don't think it's likely, especially in the short term, but hey, anything can happen. The second one is they have to raise new capital or debt by issuing more stocks or bonds. Now, this could potentially dilute the value, but of course, as they add more Bitcoin, there could be a little bit of valuation of that stock and that bond. So maybe it doesn't devalue it, but they have to issue more capital and debt. That's one way that they can bring in more funds. They have to either use existing cash flow. Remember, Microstrategy, or Strategy as it's called now, is a data analytics company. Now, I don't think they generate near the revenue that anything they do with this digital asset treasury, but there is cash flow there. And they just announced a $1.44 billion reserve to pay for these bonds that have come due, or the yield. So at least there's $1.4 billion there. And the last one they can do is they can say, look, sorry, we're going to delay the yield payout. And if they do that, I think that the stockholders will riot, and there may be a call for a change in the board, but I could be wrong. So those are the 4 I see. Let me know where I'm off on this one. And if it's true, they could go for quite some time. I just don't know if this is going to be the best thing. So there's this uneasiness that's going on with strategy. I think that's part of the reason. Also, we can see that the Bitcoin ETF flow, unfortunately, I don't have the data for it today, but if you look over at iShares, our Bitcoin Trust ETF, you're going to see that the price has been going down. So when we get updated numbers here for the Bitcoin ETF, you'll probably see that there was probably a sell-off as of today. I think they just closed the trading not too long ago. I am in Texas time for this week. I'll be in Puerto Rico time next week. So I know Eastern time, you're looking at roughly almost 7 minutes to 6 o'clock. So it should have been. So we have ETFs, probable outflow. Also, we just got about $1 billion worth of total liquidations that got wrecked. And of course, the big ones, the longs, shorts actually came in 121 million, but you get roughly looking at $1 billion lost just like that because of liquidations. Now look, I'm not your dad. I can't tell people what to do, but degens are going to degen, and they're going to go in there. They're going to have open interest, and they're going to try to trade on leverage because they think they know exactly what's happened. Like, no, it's gone far down enough. I'm going to do a 10, 20x or whatever else. I'm going to put all my funds in, and they're just going to keep getting wrecked and wrecked and wrecked and wrecked. And me personally, I hate to say this, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to all those people losing, because once you flush out all this open interest is where you can start to really move up. And we take a look right here as far as the exchange Bitcoin futures open interest. We had, dang it, let me go over here. We had a pretty massive amount previous to 10/10 or October 10th. Actually, we hit an all-time high roughly. I could be wrong, but that's what I see. And we were looking at a total, hold on, a total, here we go, of roughly $100 billion or so. And right now, as of today, well, as of 30th November, we'll get some more data into this in a little bit. We're looking at roughly 59 billion. So you chopped off around 38 billion or so of open interest because people got liquidated, and they're stopping to play on the open interest and futures market. So that's good. Hope we don't have too much leverage and perps and things like that. And that's over here. That also does take Binance. It is interesting just to see how much open interest and leverage plays are on Binance. You can see that it's, as of today, it's roughly 11 billion. That's a hefty amount. We're looking at roughly 25% of all interest is on Binance and open interest. Anyhow, good luck to all those leverage plays, but as we keep getting liquidated and liquidated and liquidated, the market will improve, but the volatility will be up. So we'll see how things go. And then also, another reason why there's a little bit of a dumpage is the macro. Now, we're supposed to get different macro information this week. Looks like, well, jobless claims are every Thursday. The vice chair, Bowman's going to speak. What else we got? Employment, auto sales. Oh, Jerome Powell's supposed to speak tonight. I have to take a look at that. I'll probably just watch Tommy and his channel, see what he's got going on. But right now, as far as like ISM manufacturing and US manufacturing PMI, which is what a lot of people were referencing as far as like the business cycle, well, it's split. As far as the ISM manufacturing and PMI, it looks like previous for ISM manufacturing, this is all about business cycle and what is being produced in manufacturing companies across the board here in the United States. Previous was 48.7. The median forecast was 48.8, and we're actually in reduction at 48.2%. As a reminder, anything below 50% is contracting. Anything above 50% is expanding. When we go below 50%, that means that there is a contraction of the manufacturing and labor department. And when that happens, that is not good for the business cycle. Now, we can see what's going to happen when the Fed comes out and says, okay, quantitative tightening ends, which is supposed to be today, and maybe we'll fire up the money printer. We'll take a look at that in a second. But because of this retraction in the ISM, it's not looking too good. And you can see this actually right here, PMI at 48.2. U.S. manufacturing sector contracted in November for the 9th consecutive month after 2 months of expansion, preceded by 26 months of contraction. The manufacturing PMI registered 48.2 in November, a 0.5% point decrease. Now, this is manufacturing PMI. On the flip side of that is the S&P Global U.S. manufacturing PMI. What's the difference? From what I can tell, I'm not a big macro guy. I'm just not. But what I can tell is the number of valuations of the people that they are asking as far as the data that they pull in. One has over 400, one has over 800, which is this one, the S&P Global U.S. Manufacturing PMI. And this one states that there's actually an expansion at, what does it say here? Operating induction U.S. manufacturing service improved for a 4th successive month in November. And I think we're at roughly 52.5. So again, it's split right down the middle. Hopefully that works out. That's a problem. That's not a problem. That's actually good news. I mean, at least it's not all bad news. So we just took a look at a lot about the bad stuff. Let me give you some good stuff. So hopefully the global U.S. manufacturing PMI does equate to the business cycle and things will start taking off. Like people have talked about in the past, the reason why the business cycle isn't taking off as much as fast as it used to is because there's a tightening by the Federal Reserve. Even though the money printer keeps going, the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve keeps getting offloaded. However, things are about to change. This is from Polymarket. Who will Trump nominate as Fed chair? 82% are saying Kevin Hassett. Who cares? Well, you should, because Kevin Hassett, the odds of the White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett, a former advisor to Bitcoin and crypto exchange Coinbase, being named as the next chair of the Federal Reserve in December, have spiked this week, fueling further bets on risk assets like Bitcoin. This is good news. Jerome Powell is going to get out. That's him right there. I thought he did a pretty good job, actually. But looks like we're going to have a Trump, what's called here, Hassett, a Trump loyalist, and he will cut rates like crazy. Who worked with the president's first term, shares Trump's view that interest rates should be brought sharply lower, warning that higher rates have risked an economic slowdown through 2025. Okay, fair. Hassett is viewed as a dove and therefore likely to support the further easing of monetary policy. Hassett also held a central role in the White House's Crypto Market Working Group, which is part of the National Economic Council. Working Group released a report earlier this year outlining recommendations for how Bitcoin and crypto should be regulated. That would be great. including language around banking, Trump's planned Bitcoin reserve, which was a big nothing burger. And now here we go, and crypto stockpile. So that's all good. We got possibly a person that's going to come in, even though he may be nominated. I believe he has to go through the Senate, correct me in the comment section, and actually be approved. But his tenure won't start until April, I believe. So we still got a little bit of time in between, and that's good. I'll tell you why. The Fed's quantitative tightening program, which began in 2022, has reduced the Fed's balance sheet to $6.6 trillion from around $9 trillion. This is bad for us because when the Federal Reserve doesn't buy a bunch of treasuries, bonds, and puts it on their balance sheet, everybody freaks out because they want the Fed to put all that stuff on their balance sheet and not have that flowing out there. But now that they're actually stopping quantitative tightening, things look pretty good. What happened the last time? You know this chart. I've shown this chart. This is from Brett_ETH. This actually, quantitative tightening ended in August of 2019. Quantitative easing, I started to do a little money printing, did a lot of things behind that. It took about 8 months or so. Yeah, 8 months. And during that time, they were also cutting rates. Doesn't that sound like what's going on right now? Yes, it does. But you will notice in black there, that's the price of Bitcoin. And what do you notice when quantitative tightening ended? It went up a little bit, but then it went down and down and down. However, in roughly 5 months or so, it started to really rise up. And then, of course, there's this thing called coronavirus, and that was a thing. But during this time, you can see that it really took 8 months to really bottom out. Now, whether that could be because of the coronavirus and who knows what else besides, you can just see that in the first 3-4 months with those rate cuts and quantitative tightening ending, you still were going down. But one thing concerns me about this, and this is the thing that I cannot figure out, which is actually the global M2 money supply. Because during this time, everybody talks about liquidity and how much we need liquidity for, and liquidity has to be there. And without liquidity, nothing happens. And liquidity is the king of all kings, which I can see it. But if you've noticed, as far as the global money supply and the current M2 money supply in the United States, what do you notice? I mean, besides here, November 2022, when did this start? March 2022 went down. But we've had nothing but money supply increase and increase and increase and increase. And yet, what has Bitcoin and the entire crypto market done since 1010? It's just gone down. Maybe this is a chance for recovery. I'm not for sure, but you would think with that much liquidity sloshing around, you would see a little bit more higher prices. You definitely saw it go for gold, just putting it out there. And lastly, before we get out here and get into the Q&A, there is one thing that makes me a little more bullish. Warren Buffett. I don't know if you guys had known this, but not too long ago, this was in November, well, just a couple weeks ago or so, middle of November 2025, there was a filing. And this is from Berkshire Hathaway, and they invested into Google's parent company, Alphabet. I know there's a big uproar about this AI bubble, but with Berkshire Hathaway, which is a very conservative investing institution, why would they just now invest into Google if it wasn't for some type of AI play? Because that's their big push. That's what they've talked about, what the CEO has talked about. And if you know anything about Berkshire Hathaway, they don't get in at the tail end. They start to get in towards the beginning. And this is actually good news. Berkshire Hathaway invested in Alphabet for the first time. They haven't never done this before. This position was disclosed in a regulatory filing in November 2025. Berkshire Hathaway acquired 17.8 million shares of Alphabet, valued at approximately $4.3 billion. This makes Berkshire's 10th largest equity holding. This is the first time Berkshire Hathaway has ever invested in Alphabet. Again, they don't get in at the end. They get in towards the beginning. So who made it? Was it Warren Buffett? Well, he's stepping down as of this year. But it is unclear whether the investment has been by Warren Buffett himself or one of Berkshire's portfolio managers like Todd Combs or Ted Welschler. The size of the position suggests it likely had Buffett's approval or involvement. This isn't just a day-by-day thing. This has probably been talked about for probably months. So for them getting into this makes me a little bit more comfortable with the AI play. However, there are things that are going on behind the scenes. There was an article that was just put out about ChatGPT and OpenAI, essentially where they are bleeding massive amounts of funds, and those investments won't see some type of, not legitimacy, but profits for years and years to come. However, this would be the earliest play for most people. And the purchase is also seen by analysts as a potential sign of the investment philosophy under CEO designate Greg Abel, who will take over the top role from Warren end of 2025. And that's it for today. So look, I know that was a little bit long at 20 minutes, but there's so many things, there's so many moving parts going on, so many things that are happening. I'm just trying to make sense of it all. I'm trying to keep it in my head and try to evaluate what's happening and bring you with me. But that's it for tonight. So if you like today's video, tonight's video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Everything we talk about is time sensitive. Now let's get into a little Q&A. I'll answer all your questions to the best of my abilities, and we'll go from there. What do you got? Let's see. What the heck happened there? Okay. Let's see. Is he still mostly in cash? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I believe he's still mostly in cash. However, if you know anything about Berkshire Hathaway, it's not like they're doing that because they're just doing it on a whim. They usually probably really hunker down to think about why this would be a good thing. Waffle says 4.3 billion is 0.5% of Berkshire Hathaway's capital. I think maybe there was a misinformation on that, but I will say that any amount of cash that is put into any different company, especially for Berkshire, it's probably one that they've actually looked at for quite some time. So positions be damned. I'm just happy that they invested into Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, and hopefully there won't be some of this AI bubble. I will say though, I mean, America is really making a run at it, and they're pretty much going all in on AI. And if we win big. If China beats us, I think that's the closest one, and it's going to be a big issue as we try to play catch up. So we better do it now. The only thing that's really concerning me, as far as like the AI play, is energy consumption. And also what is going on with data warehouses. If you've taken a look at the political landscape, which this is not a political channel whatsoever, but if you do look at the seats that are up for grabs and why recent Democrats have won, it is because they have made one of their priority issues, which is this: no data centers in your county. And the reason they don't want these data centers for AI is because it skyrockets the price of electricity, which we thought that was a problem with Bitcoin. And now it's coming out for AI. So they're actually stopping this in specific counties because the people that are nominated have come in and said that they actually just ran on that. And so we're going to stop this. You can see this happen. I think it's happening in Virginia. I know it's happening in Florida. And I know it's happening also in Texas. And like we talked about yesterday, I see nothing but a bunch of new storage facilities, which look like, I thought it was going to be an Amazon business, but apparently those are going to be the new data storage centers. And they're building these things like crazy. And once they get up and operational, probably electricity costs will go up. There's a long explanation for me just to say that midterms, you're probably going to see a lot of Republicans lose. That's what it is. All right. And first of all, I don't want to hear, oh, Rob's a Democrat or Rob's Republican. I'm neither. I think both. I think all politicians are liars, and some are useful, but most are useless. And they're also liars. Did I say they're liars? They're all liars. Don't like any of them. Yeah. And Brandon Crittenden says, yeah, it happens every midterm. And that's why, like, when we look at, please do this research yourself. Take a look at the markets, especially crypto market, for every midterm year. That would be 2020. That's every 4 years. 2022, 2018, 2014. And for crypto, that's pretty much it. But if you look at midterm years through the traditional markets, S&P 500, you'll also see every 4 years, that's usually the worst year. And the reason why, It's because the market doesn't know what these politicians are going to do. That's pretty much it. Socialist. Yeah. Thank you, Darren. We miss NFA. Yeah, this year, this week we might do it. I know, like last Thursday was Thanksgiving, so we're not going to do that. And then the week before that, guy was in Australia. So that was my best Australian impersonation. So maybe this week we'll have it. We'll see. Click. Sickus Loba says, why would OG sell Bitcoin in 2025 if the hodl in 2021, 2017, 2014, et cetera, especially if you can borrow against it, unless he, she, they lost his conviction of the asset? There's a theory that there wasn't enough liquidity for people to sell billions of dollars of Bitcoin like a lot of them had. I don't necessarily buy into that, but it could be. I mean, you could, if Michael Saylor in 2020 and 2021 could buy massive amounts of Bitcoin OTC, I think that if you're an OG and you wanted to sell, you could probably sell enough over the counter. Just saying. But they're saying like this is the IPO moment. There's so much liquidity now that they can put it into and the institutions can gobble up and the ETFs can absorb it. So I think that was part of it. I also think that people wanted to front run because everybody talked, even myself, talked about, hey, Q4 2025 is the big blow off top. And it was just the first week so far. October 6th, 2025, that was Q4. That was our all-time high so far. We'll see if we get to the 200,000 like Tom Lee says we're going to get to in December. We'll see. But I think people just, you know, if you've been holding on, well, okay, here's an example. Everybody in the comment section, tell me if you're tired. Tell me if you're tired of holding on, and tell me how many cycles you've been. If this is your first cycle, you shouldn't be tired. You're a pup. You're just coming in. But if you've been here 2 cycles, 3 cycles, or 4 cycles, tell me if you're tired of like going through this hoopla, or if you're like super exuberant every single day. I think a lot of you are tired. And I think if you bought Bitcoin in 2010, 11, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm tired of this stuff. And then with what's going on with the original message that was peer-to-peer transactions, that's what the white paper said, right? And now all of a sudden it morphed into gold 2.0. Okay, that's fine. We'll use that. And then all of a sudden it got into the hands of the institutions and the banks, which is what they were supposed to prevent. And now Bitcoin is not the original focus of the cyberpunk era that was in 2009, 10, 11. It's something totally different. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying maybe if you got in early and you believe in a certain ethos and you see what's happening now, you're like, you know what? Give me my $1 billion and I'll step out. Let's see. So what did you guys say? Michael says 2 years in, first cycle. Sounds good, man. Darren, 4 years in, still excited about DCing. See? I gotta love it. Here's Zorba Avenger says, I'm about to sell a kidney. Fun fact, you only need 1 kidney and you only need between 10 and 15% function of your kidney to stay off of hemodialysis. So just saying, you really need that kidney? Then this is not kidney advice, but I'm just saying 10 to 15% for 1 kidney. And that's even peritoneal dialysis if you really wanted to really knock it down. The sailor says, hey, Rob, I remember your video saying when I'm selling 80 to 90% of my altcoins, curious, are you still hoping they'll go up or are you already mostly out? I did not sell as much as I was supposed to. So I didn't get close to 80, 90%. Actually, I wanted to be 100% out of my altcoins except for Cardano, because I have a Cardano pool and I can't get rid of that. And I still think Cardano could do well, who knows? But I would probably hold it into the best altcoins, which the best are Binance, Ethereum, Solana, and Tron. And why are they the best? Because those are the top 4 for the killer app, or the killer function which for crypto, which is stable coins and payments. You take a look at the top 4, BNB, Ethereum, Solana, Tron. So that's about it. Let's see. Will says, I want to buy more cheaper. Don't we all? Which is a pretty good comment. Tommy says, first year, which means underwater. Tommy, I've been there. We've all been there. Everybody say hi to Tommy. Tommy, this is his first year. He's here with us. Oh, it's going to be fun times. and you're going to stick around and you're going to go through the ups and downs, and you're like, damn it, this is just a Ponzi. I hate all this stuff. And then, of course, when everything turns around, you're like, I knew it the whole time. I'm a genius. No one can stop me. And then you'll hopefully sell, or you'll round trip yet again, which a lot of people have also done. So, Tommy, welcome. Once you're in, you'll never get out. Even if you sell something, you'll be out. Let's see. Will said, I'm not tired. Tired of winning. Tired but excited to accumulate. Next bear. Sounds good. I'm exhausted. I want a break. Second cycle very true. Second cycle exhausted. Feels like I've been through 10 cycles. I know, everybody. I know. But you know what? When you get this big dopamine hit for when we just see like either like massive dips, we're like, okay, cool. Like, okay, Bitcoin's down 30% in like 40 days. I'm going to keep buying, which in case no one knows, like I buy Bitcoin every day still. I still think we'll have some type of up version. I just don't know when it is. I learned my lesson in 2021. Now, I may have to sit around here for like another 2 or 3 years. I don't want to do that. I want to sell some. But if it comes to it, I'll stick around. But I did sell along the way. I followed my advice. I had some pretty good deals for real estate and, did a little bit. Did I do enough? No. Was I perfect? Absolutely not. Can I do better? Always. So that's why I'm here. I'm happy with that discount. Me too. James on Invest Answers. Who the hell is that? Oh, yeah. Just kidding. James was saying that DOT has more users than ADA does sometimes. That's sad for both chains. Polkadot is a sad crypto project. It could have been done so well. It was headed by Dr. Gavin Wood, who was part of the Ethereum mafia, as I call it. One of the early contributors, early founders, could say, of Ethereum. I just thought it would do really great, but it just goes to show you, like there's all businesses. And you go to a business, and my favorite example is a restaurant down the street, and you walk in, not too many people are there, but the food is fantastic, the service is stellar, and the prices are reasonable. You're like, man, I got to keep coming back to this place. You come back next month, packed. You're on a waiting list. You come back in 3 months, it's kind of a ghost town. There's nobody around. And then you come back in 6 months and it's shut down. What the hell happened? Well, a lot of things happened. Maybe the safety inspector came in and said, you know what? Rats, mold, that's expired, shutting down. Or maybe somebody embezzled from the company. Or maybe the chef said, I'm out of here. This place sucks. Or the food quality just went on the tubes because they couldn't get anything good. It's a host of different reasons why restaurants fail. It's the same thing with all these crypto projects. Polygon, here's an example. They changed their tokenomics. They changed their branding, went down the tubes. What the hell happened? So that's just one example. I can give you a ton more, but as far as like with what James said, I believe it. Actually, was today Monday? Yeah, I was actually in the comments today for their DCA show. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. My biggest mistake was rotating to alts. I don't think we'll ever have alt season like 2021 again. Kamikaze Kid could be right. I still think some alts will do well because they have to. I think Wall Street wants to tokenize assets. I think stablecoins want to use the rails for these specific altcoins best. And because of that, you're going to see some that will win. You're just going to see the other 10,000 lose, as they should. So, yeah. Yeah, not sure if Ben said that, but at one time, DOT was a blue chip. It's true. A moment of silence for Polkadot. All right. Bad business decisions. Well, it's true. And I love buying the top and selling the bottom. It is fun. James does say a lot. He's got no shortage. He's a smart guy. He knows what's happening. Chris Perkins is right. Humor will get you through times of no money better than money will get you through times with no humor. Very true. I am tweaking my co-host, whose name is Bobby, and we're ready to roll him out maybe next week. If you don't know, my friend Bobby, he's a macro analyst, real smart guy, also a horrible degenerate gambler. Does like a lot of 50, 100x types of things. Doesn't tell his wife. Sometimes he gambles his kid's pension or his kid's college fund. Also has gambled his pension, lost a lot, but has made a lot. Very interesting guy, very sarcastic, very funny. And when I tweak him through ChatGPT and get him back on the show, that'll be the humor. It should be pretty fun. I think that's it. Okay. And everybody, hello, Mary. Bobby needs a stealth. Bob, he's also an idiot. Tommy Lee. Tommy says, no, he's going to be on. He was on last week, and we're going to get him back on next week. So that's it for today. So everybody, just hang in there. I know it feels like this is the worst, but it's not. It's going to get even worse at some point, and then it'll get better, or vice versa. That's it for today. Thanks much, everybody, for stopping by. I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Adios.